Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where each week we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade focused on student support and digital experiences. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Higher Ed Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify podcast network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another wonderful, super special live episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast. If you're following along, this is the third episode that I am recording here in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina. And this is all happening also on the same day, just if people are like sensing maybe like I'm losing my voice or anything. And that's my little fun game for people to try to follow along with that. But somebody who her reputation precedes her for me. I've heard a lot about her, seen her doing some pretty awesome stuff, but I've never actually met you or talked to you and anything, so this is going to be a treat for me, I know, as much as everybody else listening. So, Allison, if you want to introduce yourself, I'm sure, you need no introduction. I'm sure everybody listening to this knows who you are, but brief introductions of kind of who you are, what you do, and then we'll talk all about your podcast.
I'm Allison Turcio. I'm Assistant Vice President for Enrollment and Marketing at Siena College. I'm the publisher of the Higher Ed Marketers Digest, and most importantly, right in this moment, I am the host of the Application Podcast on the Enrollify Network.
Yeah, I know you're one of the longer running podcast hosts on the Enrollify Podcast Network, and I had a whole cohort of folks within the past couple of months and everything. And I guess just tell me about your show, how it came to be, and just sort of make sure people, I guess if they don't already, can know and appreciate it.
Well, before I was the host, I think I had done a trifecta of being a guest on Enrollify Podcast. So I think that's how I ended up a host. Zach, who was the founder of Enrollify, he asked me to be a host, and I jumped on. My angle is on marketing and more specifically on enrollment marketing. We really talk about recruiting prospective students and all the things colleges can do to get the students, especially with the enrollment cliff coming. It's really top of mind. And I try to make the episodes really focus on action, not just theory, and these are the challenges, and these are the problems and the big things to think about, but what can we actually do? So I try to get my guests to say, okay, here's the steps to take. Here's how I did it, rather than just talking in this abstract way, because we need to be doers in the situation right now.
That is a very good point. And I think you could have these sort of high-minded debates until the end of time. And it's well, yes, that is great as long as it sort of results in action and sort of outcomes and everything. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I appreciate, because I think it is part of the secret sauce of any good podcast is just longevity, consistency, sort of commitment and all that. So I think what's interesting is that you could imagine that somebody be oh, we got to basically have this podcast now, start it now, because it's the enrollment cliff is this huge existential crisis for higher ed. But it's you were in the game a while ago, before it was top of mind for everybody. So I think that's part of it. It's you've now sort of, gotten to a point and more awareness and everything at a time when it is so important. So I think, one big aspect of just, what's happening in higher ed writ large, and certainly it is kind of popping up in that sort of prospective student experience, is just digital transformation. So I'm kind of asking very open-ended, how is it sort of impacting people, the folks I'm talking to here today, whether it's in your day-to-day work or stuff that's coming up at the podcast, all the above, kind of what is on your mind, and what are you seeing in terms of digital transformation impacting your work?
I don't think I have an episode that doesn't touch on something related to digital and transformation and how we can leverage it better. But the thing that comes to mind right now is we're working on a project at Siena where we're really trying to nail down all the way down to the ad that we're running. What's the ROI on that? But not just thinking about it in terms of put through to someone inquired, someone applied, someone enrolled. We're trying to think about on each campaign, how can we think about success? So for instance, are we growing the number of students getting more impressions in target markets that we're trying to reach? We have some hot markets that we're really trying to infiltrate right now. What are some of those indicators that we're seeing? So we're listing all of those out. And then before we launch a campaign, building out how will we be able to see our way through to those results. So that's a really fun thing that we're working on right now. But it's not just about the outcomes and results. It will tell us a lot about our audience, right? If it's set up the right way, what's working, what do they respond to? So I never like to set up marketing and advertising metrics just for the sake of, is this working? Are we en route to our goals? But what can we understand about our audience? So exciting.
Yeah, it is like a really powerful kind of manifestation that can happen, is like, really feeling empowered to understand your audience, like you're saying, because otherwise it's just like, quantitative, like, measures of like, wow, look how many people got, had like impressions of this ad or whatever. Like, and that's all well and good. And it's important to like track those things, but like really kind of taking just the wealth of data that like you get nowadays, like, and having that help inform strategy on a, I guess, like a deeper level, I guess, because like the idea of like how you framed it, like getting to know our audience, like that's like a very powerful emotion, I guess, is coming up from that. Yeah.
Well, a good example is applications. Everyone can report their number of people who applied to their college or to the program, but who makes up those applications? Where are they from? What does it look like? How engaged are they with the school? Those are the metrics that actually matter, right? But what do we report to iPads and all, it's the number of applications, but that doesn't really tell you all that much about what's going on.
Yeah. And I think like, I know that I'm a bit, I guess, like naive a little bit in this world. Like, marketing enrollment is not how I came up. I'm sort of immersing myself through a lot of these conversations and coming out to events like this and just really trying to learn. I think, I'll be in a panel tomorrow, as of the recording of this. And it was like a fun challenge thinking about like, just in terms of like digital transformation and digital experience, like how I'm seeing that sort of show up in like the prospective student experiences and everything. And I think, certainly, from what you're saying, you're just getting a lot more insights. You're more informed. You're more sort of able to be kind of intentional with what you're doing. Are there other like, and I guess I'm asking this to like check my math or whatever, of like things that you're seeing, maybe like tools or approaches or strategies that like in terms of digital transformation, where it's like, yeah, I mean, like, so many years ago, we never would have had a particular platform or tool. Like, how is that sort of showing up for you, I guess, of just being like, okay, well, yeah, maybe the data we're looking at is telling us we need to communicate or connect with students in a different way. Like, is any of that kind of stuff coming up?
Well, definitely the presence of CRMs is a huge piece of that, and being able to get hyper personalized with the communication. And it's not just that the CRM can send the communication. I think that's what most people think is happening when we talk about personalization. Like, we're going to merge in all of this information and send an email so that it feels really personal to the student. Actually, what we should be doing is looking at that individual student and what we know about them, and then writing something completely custom and personal and human to them. So I actually think the most important thing right now is how can we be leveraging the technology for greater human connection? And it's really important at a school like Siena. Like, our entire mission is based on relationships first, right? So how can you actually use the technology to make that happen? And the same thing is happening with AI for us. We're not trying to use AI to replace the human connection. We're trying to use and find ways to use AI to enhance the human connection. I think that, and that's the danger. And that's also a thing that people are worried about, taking the human out of all of this, but you don't have to if you're thinking it through and you're being thoughtful on how you use it. So that's really the way that we're looking at it. I think that's important because a lot of people are going to go the way that it's just everything's going to become robotic and we're going to lose that connection. So what's going to stand out? It's going to be the people who still have the relationships and still really find that human connection with each other.
Absolutely. I think that is the key. That is the North Star to follow, is like, it's all this stuff sort of like augmenting us and helping us to do what we're doing better than like, I mean, there's always going to be things that can like rote tasks and everything that can be replaced. But that's honestly like where I feel like the fun begins, is like, how can we use any assortment of tools to sort of, like facilitate more human interaction? Because I think with like, which is kind of ironic, I guess, to say, but like peak social internet, I feel like it honestly kind of divided us and isolated us and sort of like, got in the way. And I think we have now sort of this opportunity to like, bring people back together in a more thoughtful and meaningful way and everything. But we will end, as we're ending all these episodes, optimistic note, because crazy time. We're all just trying to get by and do the best we can. But what are you kind of looking forward to, excited about in your work? Anything that's coming up, or maybe with the podcast or whatever else comes to mind?
Well, you mentioned it at the beginning. I'm chairing the program committee for EduWeb Summit 2024, which is in Philadelphia, July 9th through 11th. And honestly, I look at the schedule and there's 5 or 6 things you have to pick from on that schedule at a time. And I am looking at it, how am I possibly going to choose? It's just really, really great content. So come on out if you can make it, because it's going to be a great time, really rewarding knowledge sharing happening.
Awesome. Love the plug. Love when there's good events like that in my neighborhood and the greater Philadelphia area. It's always nice to be able to pop in and see folks. But yeah, so we'll have, obviously, as we always do, ways to connect with you and your show and everything. And yeah, just really appreciate you making some time to hang out and chat with me here. It's great to meet you and great to talk to you. And yeah, folks hopefully are engaging with all the great content and sessions that we're putting out here. Really appreciate everybody engaging with the Engage Summit.
The Hired Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances you'll like all the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better hired professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, a leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.